And then you hear Speaker Johnson, who was just walking through the Capitol and it was being interviewed, talking about aid and disaster relief. And he said that he thinks it should be conditioned on California changing their ways. If Joe Biden, who, by the way, has signed every major disaster declaration right away, given everyone the capacity aid that they are asking for, he even actually wanted to put more money into the FEMA budget, and the Republicans took it down several $billion. If he had said, you know what, Louisiana, I'm not so into your politics. You should do things differently, or Georgia, or any other conservative state, or Florida. I mean, he has been so bipartisan in this. It is not the moment to say that this is going to be attached to something conditional about you doing this the way that I think you should do.
People are really hurting, and it is disgusting and gross that any leader would take this opportunity as a moment to score political points.
This is not from a CNN host or MSNBC host. This is actually from a local news anchor on Fox 11, making the point that you'd hope in a healthy society would be shared across the board. Using this unprecedented tragedy to further some feud between Trump and Gavin Newsom does literally nothing to help the most impacted people. And I know because it happened in my community. I've been out there for the past week or so speaking with people, and I invite the Jesse Waters of the world to come and speak with them too. Tell them that you know better than FEMA, you insufferable schmuck. See if your vitriol will help ease the burden of a lost home or loved one.
Is this about fake Smeltgate again too?
There's nothing fake about the smelt.
I
actually brought the lawsuit in last week. Maybe you already forgot, Jessica. And are you going to come on TV and say that California was well prepared and couldn't have done anything better? And this fire, no one could have put it out? Are you really going to tell people watching right now in California, the Democrats, the liberals, all the Hollywood stars that are livid at Bass and Newsom, that everything was perfect and they got this thing right? Jessica, this is such a disaster.
Will probably be recalled, but I am going to come on and read what the head of FEMA had to say, or the LA County Fire Chief.
Okay.
You know better than that.
And you see, it won't. So maybe just stick to deflating co-workers' tires to get them to speak to you, because that's not weird at all, is it? Now, honestly, you couldn't pay me enough to have to listen to this drivel week in, week out. But bless Jessica Tarlov for doing so, because unfortunately, whether we want to admit it or not, this is the most watched cable news network in America. And clearly, if the last election is anything to go by, we need to meet people where they are. And unfortunately, in the wake of the hellscape that has been the LA fires and response from the president-elect and his cult followers, this is where a lot of people are digesting information like this.
This is what they're doing. And now the new one is we're going to turn and we're going to blame Donald Trump and Elon Musk. It's not going to work this time, because their friends who amplify their liberal deflection messages just had their houses burned down. They're mad as heck. They're pissed off. So it's not working.
So who else is running things? This right here, ladies and gentlemen, this is the leadership of the LA Fire Department. I sure hope they know what they're doing.
That's right. Hot takes like this. You know, if it was a man who was in charge during the 100-mile-per-hour winds that essentially created a fire hurricane, well, it would never have happened, right? Because Mother Nature, what about Father Nature? That's what we need. But thankfully, Jessica Tarlov was on hand to deliver a factual rebuttal that, of course, was then met by more hyperbole and strawman arguments.
But the truth is that reservoir was offline through February 2025, no matter what. This wasn't an unpreparedness thing. There was a tear in the cover that they had to repair. It's a normal maintenance thing. So yes, would it have been better if it had been filled? Sure, but that's not because of mismanagement. That's maintenance that has to happen.
But the maintenance didn't happen in time. I mean,
but it was always, but it's not behind schedule is the point. This isn't because they neglected it.
There were also a number of time is of the essence in this contract. If they don't have that reservoir, that involved the Palisades.
I totally understand.
And so it's like saying we're not going to have cops where we know there's going to be a crime.
Well, you don't know that there's going to be a crime. This fire was predicted 5 days out, not months out when it went offline.
We've been hearing about fires in California for years.
Okay, let me get to Jesse, because the condition might be, hey, you have to allow the Forest Service to do the work and tell the environmentalists to pound sand while we do this. They're not saying you're not going to be allowed to have trans policies unless you, we're not going to give you the money unless you do. It's not like condition for something that doesn't make sense. It's like if you're asking federal taxpayers to help continue, and all of us want to help. and we not only will we help federally through our taxpayer dollars, but we will help also through our donations. You would have to say, like, can we at least make sure that there's more than one road in and out so that people can get out if there's an emergency?
Yeah, and they were going to try to expand the road, but there was a very precious piece of lettuce that the environmentalists sued and then fined a utility for touching.
Now listen, I am not saying that there should not be scrutiny in the wake of this disaster. Of course there should be. Questions need to be asked, and an investigation will be conducted by professionals to see how better we could be prepared in the future. But that's not what these people are calling for. They're just blatantly lying. See J.D. Vance recently on Fox News.
President Trump planned to handle these last minute things, and what are his own executive actions planned, especially with regard to the border on day one?
Yeah, so Shannon, if you step back a little bit, I do think it's important to reiterate that not just on the border, but on a whole host of issues, President Biden has left us an absolute dumpster fire. Now, we're excited to get to work, but we need to be open and honest about the fact that President Biden has not left the next administration in a good place, right? FEMA's funds are depleted.
FEMA was depleted due to the disasters last year, but Biden passed a bill to replenish it. In fact, he asked for more money than what Republicans were willing to allocate.
He was talking about President Biden not leaving him any money with FEMA to deal with these wildfires. What are the facts around that?
It's just not true. We heard this from Trump after Hurricane Helene in the fall. It wasn't true then, and it's not true now. Now, it is true that FEMA's disaster relief fund was severely depleted by the number of disasters last year, but critically, Abby, it was replenished by the disaster relief supplemental bill that President Biden signed in December. I spoke to FEMA yesterday. They told me that there is approximately $27 billion today in that disaster relief fund, plus billions of dollars of additional disaster-related funding they have in other pockets of money. Now, it is true that $27 billion might well not be enough to cover the needs produced by every disaster we unfortunately end up seeing over the rest of 2025. But $27 billion is simply not no money, which is what Trump said yesterday.
Irony, right? And it's only worsened when the likes of Elon Musk are going directly to firefighters, trying to get them to add fuel to this political fire, only to be called out directly to his face.
So, all right, what about water availability? Was water availability? I understand that was like not an issue in Malibu. Is that correct?
Was it water?
Well, yeah.
So there was water. We have several reservoirs that encinos that we use a lot. Now, just an example, if we have one building burning, we could flow 1,000 gallons a minute on that one building with the hose lays that we put in to stop it. You can imagine 1,000 gallons per house we couldn't do, right? So the amount of water we're flowing, there really is no water system that's going to keep that pace. So we have to bring in water tenders, which are these big tank water tanks that, 2,500, 3,000 gallon trucks, and they'll come in. And that's what we have to do to compensate. So they park out there, do it. DWP did a great job. They brought in big water trucks for us, and we use them as basically mobile hydrants.
All right.
Right. And then we have our own agency as well that has water tenders.
Okay. My understanding is that like along the, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, in Malibu along the coast, there was no shortage of water. In the Palisades, there was a shortage of water at a certain point. Or is that not accurate?
Well, we were flowing just an amount of water that the system couldn't overbear. We're just overbearing. Just because of how much water these firefighters were utilizing.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. All right. Thanks, guys.
Positions of power like the Orange County Fire Chief, the LA County Fire Chief, the head of FEMA, even Elon Musk, who went to a briefing and heard from a fire command, who have all said that this wasn't about a lack of preparedness, that this was because it was unprecedented. If you have 100 miles per hour winds, so much so that the choppers can't fly for 27 hours, which was a crucial element of this, that it was too windy to be able to do it, then you can't stand there and blame them like this. I mean, these quotes are crazy, saying, firefighters have never seen these kinds of winds. The fires were, quote, unstoppable. Mother Nature owned us.
And as I said on previous videos, and is echoed here by local anchor Alex Michelson, it's so wildly unhelpful, right? Even more so when you actually speak to the people impacted. All it does is add confusion to an already chaotic time.
People are really hurting. And it is disgusting and gross that any leader would take this opportunity as a moment to score political points. And any of those people Democrat or Republican, I invite them to come to Pacific Palisades, come to Altadena, and walk those streets like I did yesterday, look around, and then say the same thing in good conscience. I invite them to come to the evacuation centers where there's hundreds and maybe thousands of people scattered all over the place who are desperate, who lost everything in their life, and go look them in the eye and then try to make a political point. We need help. This is not a time for political points. This is a time for people to come together and find a way within their own humanity to help people that need help. The reason we have a government is for situations like this, to help lift people up so there is a sense of safety net, so there is a way for people to go. And if the government doesn't get its act together, it's disastrous, not only for the people impacted, it's disastrous for the economy of this country, of this county, of this state. It's disastrous for everybody. And Donald Trump has made his career as a real estate guy and as a builder. He's really good at putting his name on a lot of things. And I welcome him as a Californian to show off how great he is at building. Come in here, show everybody how it's done. If the Democrats can't do it right, you do it better. I don't care who does it, but somebody's got to do it because these people need help.
And no to that fella quick to try and max out his parents' Wi-Fi trying to type fast enough about how Dems politicize mass shootings. Last time I checked, Democrats weren't paying Mother Nature to allocate 90-mile-per-hour winds to fire risk areas. Nor do they respond saying areas with more guns shouldn't get aid in response to mass shootings. The difference is Republicans single-handedly enable carnage with guns by accepting money from the NRA and their unwillingness to stand up to the gun lobby and pass common-sense gun legislation. Democratic leadership will need to answer to any faults found in response to investigations in Los Angeles, but not because Jesse Watters or Donald Trump don't like Gavin Newsom. These two things are not the same.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Midas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.